Much like Windows Phone, my channel hasn't seen much development lately, but as we all know, not everything that seems dead is truly dead. Let's talk about that. So Tech Altar is back after 4 months of inactivity, and I thought as I am unfreezing from hibernation, what better a topic could I find to talk about than the platform that is currently going to deep sleep as we talk. So if you've read any news lately, you have heard that Windows Phone is apparently dead. But I'd argue it's a little bit more complicated than that. So I'm sure you've heard that Microsoft has just sold another large part of its mobile business, and with it cut nearly 2,000 more jobs. Now to put that into a bit of context, let's do a quick history lesson first. So it all starts with Microsoft being nearly 3 years late to the smartphone game.
Steve Jobs goes to Macworld and he pulls out this iPhone. What was your first reaction when you saw that?
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine.
So that was Steve Ballmer, former CEO of Microsoft, by the way. Anyway, once he realized how wrong he was, he and Microsoft clearly tried to make it work in the mobile space. They invested billions and billions of dollars, and up until he left in 2014, they tried really hard, and mobile was clearly a cornerstone of Microsoft. And that all changed when Satya Nadella became the new CEO. Now, for the first time in Microsoft history, Windows Mobile wasn't just unsuccessful, it also stopped being a priority. Windows 10 for mobiles came a month after it appeared on desktops, and even then, it was so buggy at launch that most reviewers, even those who were once mighty Microsoft fans, they recommended staying away from the platform. On the hardware front, most Lumia devices were cancelled. There were rumors of a camera-centric flagship called McLaren, as well as more modest devices like a 750 and an 850, but none of them made it to the market. We only got some uninspiring low-end models, as well as 2 flagships in the 950 Duo, but these flagships came with bland designs, plastic covers, as well as very little promotion. So it's very hard for me and many of us to see them as real competitors to iPhones and Galaxies, and to me they seem much more like their development platforms. I see these more as Microsoft's own version of the Google Nexus program. Reference hardware to develop and test core new features on, such as Continuum, Windows Hello, iris scanning, and all the other stuff. And of course, a bit of fan service for the Windows enthusiasts. Of course, the lack of focus on both mobile hardware and mobile software clearly showed in sales performance as well. Now, Lumia phones were never the best-selling phones in the world, but there was constant growth up until the end of 2014, even if slow, and Windows phones did quite well in some emerging markets as well as low price segments. After Nadella's policies came into effect though, even that small business started to collapse. So, is that it? It's over and Satya Nadella just decided to give up on Windows phones? Well, see, that's the popular opinion, but I really couldn't agree with that. See, I think Nadella is smart enough to understand that Windows is at the core of Microsoft, and Windows as a platform cannot stay relevant for long without also being relevant on mobile. So giving up on it is kind of not an option. It's like Google giving up on search. Sure, it could do Gmail, it could do Google Maps and a ton of other things, but it wouldn't be the same. And therefore, I think they'll have to keep trying until they succeed. So if mobile is that important to Microsoft, then why did Satya Nadella seemingly stop caring about it? Well, maybe he didn't. Maybe he's just doing something in the background and we're not seeing the results of it yet. I think he did what every smart CEO would have done if they inherited a company with a kind of identity crisis. He rethought everything from the ground up and started from scratch. I think he saw that Windows Phone has been trying to catch up with the 2 popular platforms so hard that they only had time to polish problems on the surface, while underlying problems, big problems, haven't been addressed yet. The 2 big problems that come to my mind are that Windows phones weren't attractive enough for developers, and the whole Microsoft brand was very weak, especially with their focus on very cheap devices. And I think to fix those, Satya Nadella decided to bulldoze the Windows mobile efforts as we know them, rebuild both the brand and the platform, and then go back into mobile again. Let me explain how I think that could work. Have you ever heard of the app gap? Right, so it first starts with making Windows 10 an attractive platform for developers by making it universal. So after 20 years of trying, Microsoft has finally achieved one of its biggest stepping stones. It's called One Core, and it means that practically Windows that runs on your phone, your home PC, your server, or even your HoloLens is practically the same at its core, and that is a huge achievement for developers. Now, while Google and Apple are still trying to blur the line between their OSs, Microsoft arguably came there first and is by far ahead of the curve. The second thing that developers need for success on the Windows platform is a huge audience. And Windows 10 is by far the fastest growing Windows platform ever. They've already crossed the 300 million user base, and apparently the 1 billion mark is still on the radar in 1 or 2 years or so. Now that number is still not as big as say that of Android, for example, but it's already big enough for many big mainstream and even small developers to consider developing for this platform sooner or later. Probably you as a consumer won't care too much about this, but for developers, both of these things are huge deals. The other aspect that Microsoft is probably working on is simply becoming desirable again. They want to stop being the brand that produced Windows 8 and Vista and Clippy and other failures, and they want to be the brand that produced the Surface line of products, the HoloLens, as well as the much cooler and much prettier looking Windows 10. And I think it's already working. I think the Microsoft brand is already light years ahead of where it was just a few years ago. So once Windows 10 becomes attractive to both developers as well as consumers, that's when it starts making sense for Microsoft to come back to mobile again in full force. And that's exactly what Terry Myerson, head of Windows and Devices, said. Just listen to this. There's no lack of recognition to realize how important that form factor is, but for Microsoft with Windows and for our platform, it's the wrong place for us to lead. We're going to do some cool things with phones, but this year phones are an important part of our family, but not the tip of the spear. The lack of focus on Windows phones is something that will carry on until 2017. So that's about as clear as it gets, and we have heard that currently Microsoft focuses on the desktop as well as the universal parts of the OS with the current big update called the Anniversary Update that will come very soon, and then the next big update, which is going to be called Redstone 2, that will come in 2017, that will be focused on, surprise, surprise, mobile. So mobile hardware for Windows phones will also see some huge changes, as Satya Nadella basically admitted that buying Nokia was a mistake. He laid off many former Nokia employees and basically let everyone know that he thinks Microsoft should be a multiplayer game and Microsoft shouldn't be the only company that's making hardware for Windows Mobile. And this too kind of makes sense. It's called Microsoft and not Micro Hard for a reason. It's a software company, and Microsoft would do best if it did like Google on Android as well as Microsoft on desktops by having many manufacturers. Specifically, Nadella said that they're leaving the developing markets and the low-end price segments to focus on high-end aspirational devices in developing markets for enterprise consumers. Now that to me sounds a lot like they want to create a sort of halo device to lead the industry and to lead other manufacturers. And guess what? That's exactly what they have been doing with the Surface line of products so far for PCs and desktops. And a mysterious Surface phone is rumored to come in 2017 to do the same for mobiles. It's supposed to show that A, Microsoft really can create a phone that is just as cool as the iPhones or the Galaxies of this world, and B, that your phone isn't just a phone anymore, it can also be a PC. And then it's basically up to other hardware manufacturers like HP to do the rest and flood the market with hundreds and hundreds of devices. See, Microsoft does have a plan, but of course the question is, will it work? Now, I don't see the future, but I can tell you some pros and cons, and I'll start with my pros. I'm pretty sure that Microsoft knows what enterprises want, as it already supplies practically all corporations in the world. And up until now, neither Android nor iOS have very good enterprise solutions, so maybe this is indeed the best niche for Microsoft to start. And maybe for enterprise consumers, even the app gap isn't that much of an issue. Of course, the biggest thing Microsoft has going for it is Continuum and the one core, one Windows platform that I think has the chance to explode and completely change the market. First, maybe only for enterprise, but I think eventually for everyone. It will take a few more years, but probably at some point in time, your phone will be able to replace your computer, and I think currently Microsoft is better equipped than anyone else to take advantage of that. The other thing that I'll mention here is that Microsoft clearly can create some of the hottest hardware on the market. They did it with the Surface Pro, they did it again with the Surface Book, and I think if the Surface team tries again, they'll probably do it for the Surface Phone as well. But see, all the pros I can come up with are from the far future, where in a few years Microsoft could indeed become relevant again. However, neither its present nor its past looks very encouraging. First, I'm not quite sure how excited mobile manufacturers actually are about making Windows phones. I mean, most of them left the sinking platform with their hands burned, so Microsoft would have to show to them that there actually is a demand for the platform first, which for now really isn't the case, and Microsoft failed to do that even with their own Nokia acquisition. Maybe Continuum will be the difference, and we've seen HP's Elite X3 as well as Vio's PhoneBiz, which both focus on Continuum as their main feature. However, we've yet to see anything that's even remotely big enough for it to matter. Finally, I think Windows Phone has a trust problem because it has tried and failed so many times and burned so many consumers on the way that most people wouldn't trust it and buy into the platform again, even if they were offered the device of their dreams. For all those reasons, I think the future of Windows Phone is actually quite uncertain. However, despite all those question marks, I feel like Microsoft has finally woken up and it finally has a chance at turning things around with Continuum and the unified platform and all. I'm actually quite excited about this future, which is why I bought a Lumia 950 lately, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on this phone with you in the next video. So if you want to see that, be sure to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on all the socials, and by the way, if any of your friends ask you or tell you that Windows Phone is dead, then be sure to share this video with them. So that's it for me for today. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Goodbye.